To start, I've created a nav element that contains an unordered list of links. The first thing that we're going to do is add a span here above our label that has a class name of shadow. We'll move over into our styles and let's start styling our shadow. That will be absolutely positioned within our links. And we'll have a background color of light gray. Lastly, we'll have a negative Z index here just to ensure it's behind the text. And for consistency, let's add that border radius here to our shadow as well. So now we got our shadow showing up behind each of our links. But what we want to do is when we hover over a link, show the shadow, and as we move in between the links, animate between the states. So to do that, we're going to bring in a couple of components from Framer Motion. We'll need the motion component, as well as the animate shared layout component. First thing that we'll do is just wrap our nav in the animate shared layout. And then once that is set up, we can actually start updating some of our markup to use Framer Motion, or the Framer Motion component. So the UL will be a motion component. The list item will be our motion component, as well as our shadow. So now we shouldn't see anything different at the moment, but what we can do is bring in some state from React, and we'll call that active index and set active index. And we'll set that to null by default. So with that set up, we can actually go to our motion LI here, and that has a prop called onHoverStart. When that is called, we want to set our active index equal to the index. And to display this, let's just make sure we have this correctly set up. When we hover over these, we can see that is actively updating based off the index. So next, what we can do is create a variable called isActive. And isActive is true when the index is equal to the active index. So when that happens, what we want to do is actually show our shadow. So we'll put that inside of here, and when that's not true, we'll just render null. So now as we go through each item, we can see that shadow showing as appropriately. What we want to do is when we move away from the list though, is remove the active index. So on our motion UL here, we can do onHoverEnd. And similarly, we're going to set active index, but we're going to set that to null. So now when we remove our hover, we can see that the shadow is removed. So the last thing that we need to do to make this work is actually just apply a prop of layout ID, and we'll just call that shadow. So now as we move between our links, we can see that shadow is animating between the two. Cool thing about this is we can actually change the flex direction of our list. We'll set that to column. And we can see this works appropriately there as well. We don't need to do any type of direction updates based off of column or rows.